So thanks for joining. It's always good to see you. And we've known each other for a long time and have intersected data, tech, media, marketing, agencies, communications across all industries. And now you're at Google working closely with agency customers as we are at Rebrandly. So I'm always keen for your insight about what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what really matters to agencies, whether they consider themselves modern, innovative, or traditional. Agencies play such an important role in our global economy. And as a technology platform provider, Ray Brandley, we're always keen to understand what is really going to matter to agencies and their clients. So I'd love to get your perspective and chat about that with you today.
Yeah, I am in, and I can kick it off with some provocative thoughts. I view agencies mostly as professional services companies, right? That's the category that I have in my head for them. And good professional services companies are really well organized around four key questions, right? And that is, does it help my client grow? Can I do a lot of it? Can I differentiate it in my way, my methodology? And then
Mhm.
how do I make money? Because it is a business. So you should be allowed to make money. Although some clients don't treat their agencies that way. That is a current challenge in the market. And it's interesting because the how an agency goes about answering those four questions and even the order in which they choose to answer them dictates the strategy and dictates the value that they actually bring to clients. I don't know, I would love your how do you view those four questions?
Yeah, I think those are spot on. I think also one of the questions is how big is the problem that my agency partner can help me solve? And so when you describe agencies as a professional services company, that resonates and makes a lot of sense because they are so close to the client business, but they also have the perspective of being objective and have a purview across presumably a lot of different clients in other industries, right? So the agency's ability to leverage their perspective, their purview, and kind of 10,000 foot level experience and expertise is really something that I think a lot of clients don't understand how to leverage. So when you think about those four questions, how do clients really work with their agencies to make sure that they're answering the questions in the right order?
Before I even answer that question, I would love to comment on a thought you inspired just on what you said right before this, which is the the client's not whether how big of a problem an agency can solve for a client or how what's the scope or what's
Mm,
possible dramatically night and day different and more expansive today than when I started in the industry as an assistant media planner at BBDO working on the GE account. It is extraordinary, like the impact that data technology and platforms, and the capabilities like Rebrandly are able to do to expand the scope of services and what's possible, and it's all driven
yep,
and grounded in the data that's available, right? It used to be just provide the service. Now the service leaves a trail of data and crumbs and where you are able to extract insight and apply it into the rest of the equation, and then you just make everything better. Then it just becomes a game of how far down the or upstream does that insight apply to have impact in helping the client grow. And today's capabilities, it's a very much a blurring of the lines, right? And a few
yep.
years ago, it was brand and performance blurring. Yeah, and it's still a challenge, brand and performance. So we can dive into that in a little bit. And now, even more consultancies versus agencies, like the capabilities, everyone can do everything, but it's just their starting point and their methodology change depending on the kind of business they are and where they started from.
100%. Yeah. And so I think the role of an agency is really tough, right? The expectations get, as you said, they get more advanced, maybe a little bit more outrageous. And the standards and the stakes are higher and higher every day. How do agencies protect themselves for lack of a better term? How do they ensure that they're setting the right boundaries, but also being bold enough in a way that will help them win new business, retain that business, and grow that business.
Yeah, so there's the what they should do and then what sometimes happens. So first and foremost, any good quality agency, which there are many, they focus on clients' growth. If it's not helping your client grow, it's going to catch up with you at some point. And that's why I started with those 4 questions, because if you anchor in that, you're not going to lose weight. You're part of the solution, you're part of the answer. Then it's just a matter of how much is that growth worth? And that's a better conversation, a healthier way to negotiate.
Always.
Always, because it's not even debating if the growth is there. It's just determining the value of the growth you provide. That's a much better framing. I will say that the there are clients are not particularly fair. And keep in mind, you're talking to someone that's been on the agency side. I've been a client, been on the sell
Yeah.
side. I've seen it
You've
all.
seen it all.
And there are a lot of clients that just intentioned, right? What the client is trying to do is maximize the amount of working dollars above the line
Mhm.
in market, the many dollars that the consumer can see the impact to drive results, right? Good,
Mhm.
smart, focused clients are trying to maximize that impact. And the biggest challenges agencies tend to face is that clients tend to view what they spend on agencies as spend, not investment. They view media as investment sometimes, but they view agency as a cost center. And so they manage it accordingly. That's when they bring in procurement and they lose sight of the plot, if you will. And they don't pay as
Mhm.
much attention to the statement of work and the deliverables. They focus more on the hourly cost of which stakeholder that they're paying
Right.
for. And when the conversation gets into that, generally speaking, the service degrades over time. So how agencies defend against that, for lack of a better word, because I'd also like
Mhm.
won't view it as defense. I feel like they're playing more offense and getting more creative and
Yeah.
how they go
Good.
after things. It's the beauty of agencies is their dynamic, adaptable business model. There's no other business model on the planet that a large agency can manage across 200 different billing systems and still find a way to deliver service and make it work. That's not normal for companies
Brilliant.
like that. Yeah.
Right.
So the way that they're approaching it now is the innovation, right? They're using data and technology. In some cases, they're acquiring data and then
Yeah.
taking that and using it. And in other cases, it's as simple as just connecting the dots and accessing data. Both strategies are basically aimed at the same end goal, which is extracting knowledge and insight to inform action. And that is that, and just in all of the different ways that can go. Some are doing it in specialized, focused ways like promotions and loyalty, commerce, and things like that. Social, we were talking about this the other day. The 4 behaviors are all basically labeled. The consumer behaviors are also how agencies are organizing, and that's searching, scrolling, shopping, and streaming. Everything a
100%.
consumer does online is one of those 4 things, and there's a specialist or an agency that does each of those things or all of them in cases.
And
And
just on that point, so those 4 S's, is that where agencies who are really focused on data and innovation, is that where they're investing or organizing their data assets to solve each of those problems?
yes, and
Okay.
so the think of those 4 sources of
Categories.
categories
Mhm.
of
Yeah.
consumer behavior. Yeah, thank you. Much better
Yeah.
framing. That's why you're
That's
in charge. The starting point. I don't view that as that's the where the agencies go. They use consumer behavior as a way to deliver value to clients, but also the starting point to farm for that knowledge and insight. To
mhm.
the A lot of the work that's being done at agencies, especially the largest ones right now, really is around condensing the timeline from
Mhm.
getting information and being able to use it as insight. The inevitable next step beyond that will be how to take that AI powered, smarter, human guided insight, because people will always need to be part of the process. Like, where else can it be applied? Does it help improve anything that you do in the store on the shelf? Does it change the experience at the store where you create opportunity for the client? Does it
Mhm.
actually change the packaging and the branding? These are all things. And this is where those little extra touches and those little extra considerations to make sure that you're getting the most out of that consumer behavior is largely why we are having this conversation tonight, because that's in
Right.
my mind what Rebrandly represents.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why you're the expert. One of the things that I observe, and I'm struggling to find the answer to it, but maybe you can help based on the conversations that you're having, is when it comes, so let's talk about brand for a little bit. I started my career in brand marketing. I love brand, the concept of brand, everything, brand marketing, brand strategy, brand discipline, brand trust, brand loyalty, all of those different elements of the brand characteristics. But I see agencies and their clients sometimes discounting or ignoring the power and the importance of brand identity in a lot of campaigns, communications, all of the essential channels that contribute to the four S's, the shopping, streaming, scrolling, etc.
Search.
Search, thank you. The fourth one, the big one. How what's going on with that disconnect? There are a lot of when you just look at spam and the proliferation of fragmentation of brand identity and as it relates to links and content and everything that's visible in social. Generic data seems to be prominent. Why is that? Why is it so hard for agencies and their clients to align around brand strategy and the importance of brand?
So there's actually, I have three reasons for that. And I might need a minute to unpack them all. Bear with me.
That's okay. I love that you number everything, so it makes it easy for me to remember.
I just hope I remember three things now. The pressure is on.
Don't go to 5 and then I'll lose you
Yeah, I'll probably
completely.
forget the third one by the time I get to it. I'll start with the first thing is that as the marketplace, the consumer behavior keeps changing, the media landscape keeps changing. I think this is not fair to marketers, but I do think that the average client, the average marketer needs to be reminded that brand marketing is also performance marketing. It's anything else. You have metrics
Yep.
that you measure its performance against. It's just as different metrics than, let's say, like shopping or lead gen. And you should manage it with the same degree of rigor and care and focus and accountability as you would just trying to sell something online
Yeah.
directly to a consumer. And I do think the, a lot of clients lose sight. So, two, the evolving nature of platforms and the media landscape has actually influenced consumer behavior. So I've
Mhm.
seen this over the last couple of years, the blurring of line of how consumers perceive their digital or online experience. I don't have exact numbers and details, which I know you love, but I have
That's
seen
all right.
research and studies that have shown consumers that, like, say, use social media will say that 85% of their purchases happened on social media. But like the actual math is probably more like 10 or 15%. So
Interesting.
like mathematically, it's not possible. Like you can't back into it.
They don't add up.
It doesn't add up, but it's not the disconnect. We're not trying to prove anyone wrong here. It is
Yeah.
more the perception and the user experience is so seamless now that the consumer may not understand that they've navigated somewhere else to complete it or shop for something, and everything is one click away from a shoppable experience. And how, as a client, as a marketer, you're you're plagued with this question of, do I maximize the sale in this moment? Do I use promotion,
Yep.
or do I do loyalty? Do I focus on the lifetime value? And what's actually more valuable in this moment on this decision
Right.
and based on what we know?
And
And
why do they feel mutually exclusive?
yeah,
That's
and
that's another question.
yeah, so like 100%. So that complexity of understanding that is very much where a lot of the capabilities and services, and a good example of condensing the timeline of you taking information and what you would go and do with it would be to answer
Mhm.
very specific questions like that. Because if you can answer that question and know, like, today they're just buying a pair of socks, get the sale, and then follow up with something tomorrow, and
Shoes or
or
whatever.
shoes, that's fair. Nothing. I'm a fan of shoes too. Those are incredibly important touch points.
Yeah.
Today, we're still struggling with, you just bought the car and that's when you start getting ads for cars.
Mhm. Yeah.
Tomorrow it'll be hopefully a little bit further upstream where, it just gets the timing right on loyalty versus promotion.
Yeah, that makes sense. What's number 2?
Oh, that was number two. So the third one
Okay.
is I would say, the marketplace, the idea or art of testing and experimentation is
Mm.
a lost art in our industry, in the for marketing, and definitely for media. That they happen, tests and experiments happen all the time. I would say that there's a huge opportunity to be able to better organize the entire planning process with experimentation, like in the pre-brief stage. When a marketer or a client is asking, if you want, like for the marketers watching this, if you have an agency and you're working with them and you want to get the most bang for your buck and to take advantage of everything that agency has to offer, when you give them your marketing brief, don't just tell them your business goals and objectives. Share with them what you want to learn based on the questions you don't want to have to ask again the next year when you give them the next year's budget. Spend time, and if you don't know those questions, then use your agency's expertise to help inform what those questions
Inform it.
might be.
Yeah.
Because if
What
you
would sorry, what would an example of a top question be for that?
yeah, it really could be anything, right? It could just be as simple as creative executions or the loyalty versus promotion conundrum that we just talked through.
Mhm.
It can even be as simple as creative elements and or media channels. Like there's not a single element of the plan that there's always another way. It can always be better. And how it can be better will always change because the consumer is always evolving and what they
Mhm.
doing on and how their expectations and how it's being served. This being an innovator and a leader for your career, how many times have you seen the right idea at the wrong time?
A lot.
So just bringing back like my
Yeah.
career, my first 5 years in media on the agency side, I think I got carpal tunnel syndrome just doing national theoretical or hypothetical media plans. What would it look like if you just did it this in one market, but at the national rate to create
Mhm.
experiments and inform how we do things? That kind of stuff doesn't really happen anymore. Like it's
Yeah.
not, or if it does, it's certainly not done in like partnership from end to end components of teams from planning and insight all the way through activation.
And why is that? I wonder about this a lot when talking to agency customers. It's from my perspective, what I hear is that there isn't enough time allowed, or that process isn't valued by perhaps all of the internal stakeholders to allow for that process to take place. And the impact of that and the ripple effect of not having that stage is really significant. And that's actually concerning, right? That step is getting skipped for a variety of reasons. Do you see the same thing or see it differently, perhaps?
I definitely agree with you. I think I would add to it. So everything you said plus one, yes. And I think if I had to try to explain why more specifically, I think it's let's be honest, like marketing is more effective and gotten smarter and better in the last 20 years, right? There's no question, even from 50 years ago, it's a progression that is the trend lines are very healthy and positive. But you would not see annual increases on advertising every year if that wasn't true. There's too many
Hmm.
smart people making too many choices with too much money for that to
Yeah.
not be true. So
Fortunately.
fortunately, thank God, thank goodness that's why we are employed, right? The I think it's just as simple as the evolution and the complexity and where it's emerged and where data and tech has been able to serve and solve. It's
Hmm.
just been the industry working and capturing the low hanging fruit as things evolve over time. And the idea of doing a lengthy, like national theoretical or hypothetical test when you can just extract value out of the campaign you just ran and use it immediately for
Yeah.
insight and the 10-year runway of getting really great at that. Just even the whole industry of just managing search and search engine optimization and the keyword list and now AI powered and embedded, like all of that is
Hmm.
those are all just examples of things that were important to answer the questions. But I think data and technology, the use of AI are evolving to the point where you can get back to those basic steps of answering really big questions from and asking them in the start and answering them throughout the process. I think we're
Yeah.
on the cusp of a pretty fun time in the industry.
That's a great point. It brings it full circle to AI. So let's talk about AI
Right.
for a second.
How can you not
I,
think about AI?
how can we not? I love talking about AI. But I also recognize, and I've been around long enough, and we've been around long enough to know that AI is not new. When we were at Nielsen together, and we
Mhm.
were lucky enough to work with really sophisticated sentiment and NLP technology for determining audience intention, willingness to buy, etc. It's been about 15 years since that early wave, and not the only wave, but the early wave that we were part of. And now AI is here and it's everywhere. There's so much fear that surrounds AI, and a lot of the questions that you hear are, maybe it's clickbait as well, but it's a combination of things focused on a theme of, is AI going to displace the role of marketing? There's a lot to unpack there, but what you don't hear is AI going to displace the role of agencies. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on, how are agencies leveraging AI, knowing that there's such a spotlight around the threat, but also the opportunity for AI to really inform and facilitate some of the flywheel processes that we just talked about: experimentation, attribution, analysis, creative, strategic planning. How are agencies leveraging AI, and what do they need out of AI to help them differentiate further?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because the short answer is it's actually incredible and amazing how agencies are gravitating to and exploring and using AI, and they're using it in every different way. So it's funny though, you brought up the whole fear. It reminds me when the early days of Nielsen Buzz Metrics before it was Nielsen Buzz Metrics. And
Exactly.
it was the same exact thing that went through, right? There was a lot of worry about the spamification of online discovery.
Yes.
That was something that we talked about. It was in slides and decks and presentations.
Eh,
And I do feel there's a similar sentiment and concern as it relates to AI. And I do think that there's a big opportunity to organize around it with industries and guidelines and standards. I don't think any one company should set that all by themselves. As it
I
relates
agree.
to how agencies are using it, there's basically there's 3 flavors, right? There's the same way that every other business is exploring and looking at AI, streamlining process, finding efficiencies, improving the product and the capability, and the degree of sophistication that they're bringing to it is pretty staggering, especially the bigger partners, because they're able to account for the hundreds, if not thousands of clients that they have to inform what you need to do and what it needs to do. It may take a little longer to build out, but
Mhm.
the sophistication of it is amazing, and the ability to I'm not gonna they're doing it the right way. Like no one's using one client's data to help another client form better. It's not that. It's more just the list of features and capabilities that are available are now configurations instead of customizations for clients. It's just built smarter from the beginning. So
Yeah.
that's one.
Really, I love the ability to infuse the key principles in a way that can scale solutions, right?
Totally.
It's
So that's
staggering, as you said.
it's unbelievable, and the depth and intelligence and the investment that they're putting in. So that's the first one. It's just running a better business, just like every other like smart marketer out there that
Mhm.
recognizes they're not competing against AI. They're competing, as we say where I work, you're competing against other marketers using AI, right?
Yeah.
So manage accordingly. The second area is to all the partners, right? So agencies are agents for clients. They represent and they explore and they test and learn. So they don't have to necessarily build everything. Sometimes they just have to use what's out there and then help clients learn. And so we call that embedded AI at Google, right?
Mhm.
It's just embedded in our products. And if you want to get the best of Google AI without having to make your head spin, just run ads and you'll learn and pay attention, use your data on
Right.
the other side of it.
A little bit, right?
Yeah, or at least use that to get started, and then as you get more
Yeah.
comfortable, you can figure out other stuff. The third area is what we call like applied AI, right? And this is where agencies are really getting smart, interesting. The tools and capabilities that are AI powered, connecting the dots with all of the access they have to the data, the access to the data clients are willing to allow them to have, and the ability to use
Mhm.
clean rooms that will allow for that to happen more freely and openly because less fear of anything wrong or inappropriate happening.
Mhm.
The tools are so much better now that the things that were concerns yesterday, those are just accounted for. Standard operating procedure. Here's how we protect your data while we help you get more out of it. That's a
Mhm.
part of the agency data and tech story right now, and it's just getting smarter and better.
Yeah. Love it. Was there a third one
So the
that you
third one
said?
was the applied AI and the building
The
out.
applied AI.
So
Yeah.
like building out tools and capabilities. If yesterday it was just taking client sales data and trying to figure out which markets to target, now you're able to get clickstream data as an example. And then from
Yeah.
the client's website, overlay that with every other data point that the client has, add in some information you have from all the campaigns and email marketing and all of the, the text messaging campaigns that are out there, and then be able to reconcile all of that,
Hmm.
into, again, knowledge and insight that can inform the next action. And then those things are being done in very focused containers as it relates to something as simple as running ads. It's being used and focused into improving and creating better creative. It's also being used on the inside, making better data models, condensing the timeline to long time lifetime value of the customer,
Makes sense.
right? And the speed which you can do things you used to do once or twice a year are now able to be done monthly and soon probably weekly.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. It makes you think of all of the possibility. It truly makes my head spin in a good way. Mentioned clickstream and text messaging and all of the functionalities that Rebrandly offers, as well as other platforms. Are there certain channels for, and it's obviously hard to say that one size fits all, but certain channels that are really exciting for modern agencies, maybe some of the larger agency clients that you're working with? Where are they looking? Assuming whether it be B2C or B2B, today's news about TikTok facing a somewhat uncertain future here in the US means that tapping into that audience may be more difficult for agencies and their clients. We see a lot of customers who are really looking at text messaging to be able to deliver targeted and personalized communications for all sorts of use cases, whether it be a new campaign, a product launch, communications like here in California. We had an earthquake and a tsunami alert yesterday.
I
And
know.
my phone kept me up to date with everything that was very personalized to me based on who I am and where I live. So, are agencies looking at more personalization in channels like text messaging and MMS, SMS, and other elements of messaging? Or are they looking at traditional modes still? How are they balancing the mix of their media plans?
Yeah, so first, I would say varies by type of client, size of client,
Sure.
right? The traditional channels are evolving and changing, but they're still, it's not TV now, it's video and connected TV.
Yeah.
So that's still going to matter a lot. It's still going to get the lion's share of investment and a lot of the attention from a creative strategy and design positioning and all of those
Yeah.
things that you love as a brand marketer. The I think the opportunity is exciting in that what we consider marketing today, and like you're talking about media planning, I think that's going to change in the next few years and how we look at it. And the next version of blurring of the lines, right? This is just one person's opinion. Today, we're planning and organizing media by channel, campaigns by distribution point.
Yeah.
And tomorrow, I think it's so far beyond that. The Because you're talking about text campaigns, a lot of companies use text, and the ability to have trusted short links isn't something that just use for a paid campaign. You need that for your customer service and the other touch points. Those things will start to get accounted for and valued in the equation because the data and the machines will be able to do it all faster. If the marketers
Hmm.
are truly leveraging all of the data they actually have access to and using that again to create knowledge and insight to inform action, the opportunity to expand the scope of channels like things like SMS and the tools that you use to maximize the value out of it, branded short links and QR codes,
Hmm.
in my mind, it's nothing but upside because of the ability to put everything on the same level playing field where you can look at it and value it in the same way. And all it really takes is marketers that understand the full consumer journey and don't get stuck in their own silos of where the budgets come from. Right. By the way, which agencies absolutely help clients work through if they're having the right conversation. And then the other side of it then just becomes smart marketers that are really truly trained in the basics and have a solid like measurement framework that covers what are your CFO level metrics. Does it, if it's a stock price, if it's a sales, whatever that financial metric that you live and die by every
North Star or whatever.
your North Star. Then what are the next leading indicators in the past? Brand awareness, brand perception, used to be those things that I think depending on the client, those can vary, and finding
Hmm.
processes across the different channels. And then execution metrics in media, reach and frequency execution metrics. You manage and then track it, and you organize around it, and you customize it
Yeah.
based on your needs. Imagine being able to have like consumer retention metrics on the same par and be able to make budget decisions, and more actually, I'll better state it, better business decisions, even though the budgets come from different places.
I love that. Yeah. I would imagine CFOs would love that too, right? Because in some ways it's very empowering for them. If all high tides raise all boats, right? The same is true for budgets. If they raise the overall performance, regardless of where they come from, obviously weighted somewhat differently based on cost of goods or whatever other it needs to be considered. But there's a big story to be told there about looking somewhat agnostically across budget silos to ensure that you're solving the ultimate goal, which is a North Star that most companies have defined. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
Um,
and the trick to it all, and again, going back to the theme of our conversation, one of the reasons why agencies are so valuable in that transition is the need to maintain specialization while you're trying to put all of the touch points on in the same container, and be valued, right? If
mhm.
you need to be able to evaluate them all the same way, and make it CFO, digestible,
Friendly.
while maintaining the expertise and specialization you need to operate it with the best in class expertise and best practices, and advantage based on what you actually have in your data as a client. And that is
Yeah.
a huge value prop that clients, I don't think, fully understand, how to leverage agencies for that kind of transformation as well.
Yeah. I love that. That's probably a great spot to wrap it in terms of transformation, empowerment, all of the other elements. Anything else you want to highlight or that anything we didn't talk about?
No,
Our
listen,
time together always flies by.
no, that's some of it is just spoiled because I know we're just gonna we talk all the time, so I'll get another chance to go there. But this was a fun conversation, and if I had to summarize it, I would just say that focus on the trend lines, not the headlines. It's a famous Bill Clinton quote. The CMOs are not losing their standing in companies. Marketing is gaining its importance as a business driver. It is
Yep.
seen more and more as a way to grow, not a cost. And then thankfully, the tools that you have to use to make marketing work better, there's just better and smarter options to use. And I am very grateful to be a part of what you're leading right now.
Thank you. We're excited to have you be a part of it too. And
Thank
together, I know we'll be packaging up all sorts of great things for agencies with a bow this holiday season and in 2025. So thanks. Thanks for being a part of it. Great to see you today.
Same. Thank
Cheers.
you.